Meka Olowola, who is the managing consultant at Zenera Consulting and energy expert, to talk to us this morning. Good morning. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
We appreciate your time. This is your time, those of you in the energy sector. Give us your thoughts very quickly in the last couple of hours. What has happened? What are you hearing? What's the word on the street and from within the oil industry?
The oil industry is very positive about this development, clearly. This is something that the downstream sector has always clamored for consistently over the years, contrary to what many people think and believe, that they were out to profiteer from subsidy. But seeing this happen now, something that is much overdue. So it's a delight to the downstream sector. And what the feelers out there is mixed feelings, understandably, because, on one side, people applaud the decision, and on the other side, people are looking at, the reality of having to cope with the things that will happen in the next couple of weeks or months before you then see the stability that comes with, this sort of...
You spend years of your life in that industry. Give us some sense of the economics of this new regime.
Okay. So what is happening now is, before today, the average Nigeria buys fuels between maybe 150 and 220 naira per liter, and that's incontrovertible. So you've seen a lot of statistics thrown out there. You see NOI polls say it's about 176 naira per liter, and that's the reality.
And the Bureau of Statistics as well.
So they say 150 naira per liter, so you see it hovering around,
that band.
Yes, that band, And then when you call, I spoke to my sister yesterday, and she said, oh, this year I haven't bought anything less than 190, and she lives in Kogi State, So that's the reality. What is happening is the ability for Nigerians to then buy appropriately priced product or commodity, at the pump price, and get good service, demand good service, and get very good quality, of life, because efficiency will increase, across the value chain. You've seen that happen in the case of diesel, for example. We used to queue up, businesses were groaning, because there was lack of AGO, or diesel supply in the market.
And we seem to have resolved the diesel
completely.
It's not 2 3 years ago. It was
yes,
a major
it
problem.
was a huge problem, just like this.
Diesel was a major problem.
It was worse than this.
Diesel seemed to play.
Nobody's talking about it anymore. Right? It's a subconscious thing, you have your logistics officer, place your demands for diesel, when it's going to come in, it comes in and you move, boom, your business goes. You have already factored it into your cost of production, and everything has not been templated, So it's no longer something that you think about, So shouldn't we picture that beauty where, petroleum products, refined petroleum products in its entirety is not anything that Nigerians think about, again anymore. So that's what is starting to happen. It's just, something that's got to happen. The opportunity cost is not even thinking.
Talk to us about the NNPC, the godfather of the oil industry here. What is the NNPC trying to achieve?
NNPC has tried several models, several models to arrive at this point. They are sensitive to the plight of the people. I must give it to the new, crop of leadership that is at NNPC at this time. You can see the sincerity, you can see real genuineness in, their ability, their determination to resolve, what we're going through as a country. But NNPC, having said that, is a highly inefficient organization, corporation. They have no business, trying to run the importation or the distribution of refined products. It's not just the way they are, that's just the truth, as well-meaning as they sound. So what happened was they tried, they pushed, the importation numbers to 75% to the major marketers, and they went back to 25 to see, okay, let's leave you guys to, import products and let's see what happens in the country. That didn't work because of the FX issue. There was no foreign exchange for the marketers to be able to support that regime. Okay, they went back. There was a lot of agitations from everywhere. Mudslinging, saying that they were not performing. So they tried to say, okay, let's see if we can internally get access to foreign exchange, because we have CBN there. We'll probably be able to talk to them. They try that. But if you look at the value chain of, bringing product to Nigeria, to run, is a very complex one. Everybody seems to be an expert in it, and you just talk about one aspect. But there's a lot that happens before it gets to the pump. So managing that value chain is a very difficult one for NNPC, because of the way the government is set up, not to run business.
Is the foreign exchange scarcity a key issue here for the foreign exchange scarcity from earnings? Is that a key problem here for the NNPC?
Yes, that's what precipitated all of this.
Then everybody you had earlier thought and always believed that the oil majors, the oil major marketers and independent marketers and portfolio petroleum marketers, those who just use portfolio to import petrol, all lean on the NNPC and make it really inefficient. Now the NNPC says, get off my back. Is that what this is all about?
Yeah, so what NNPC is saying now is we don't have an alternative to, you can call it partial deregulation or, fully liberalizing the market, because we've come to the point where you have to think about the opportunity cost. What would you rather have? Do you want to go into the fuel station, buy your fuel, and go in and do your work, and don't lose those number of hours, unimaginable, productivity loss that comes from, either staying on the queue or the traffic that it causes. People die, on those queues. That's a reality. They get mugged. People hoard petrol,
store them at home,
and there's fire, and they get. When you do the numbers, the real cost of
the economics
of a liter of petrol, in my estimation, is clearly way above 250. Many people say it's about, the last statistics I saw yesterday was 236, but I think it's even beyond that, because when you factor in all of that, what you're losing, you will see that Nigeria is way better off, liberalizing and deregulating, the sector, so that we can go and, look at what happened in the telecoms. The tele-density of Nigeria was awful, was abysmally low, at 0.5%, about 10, 15 years ago, right? Now everybody has, telephones. We have, about 60 million, penetration level, and everybody's thinking about that. Now there's a price war, you recharge your phone, sometimes you get double the airtime and stuff like that, So I think that, that's what it is leading to. I think that this is something that is good for Nigeria, and this is something that is long overdue for Nigeria.
One very critical question we need to take very quickly is what's the new regime means for the oil majors. When I mean the oil majors, not the producers, but the big boys, the big brands in the downstream sector, Wando, Forte Oil, Mobil, Total, MIS, Corn Oil. What does it mean for them?
I think it means a number of things. First of all, they can bring in products and expect to be able to recover the pump price, and not to wait for the long period and the arguments and the headaches that come with trying to claim your subsidies, because of the malfeasance, that happens in the industry. So genuine businessmen find it difficult, to operate under such conditions. That's one. Two, I see a situation where you will see a lot of investments in the sector, as people then go abroad to talk to their partners, to talk to their investors, to say, the market is liberalized now. The market, is without encumbrances that used to be there. So you can bring in, your funds, your investable funds, and see and make a reasonable forecast of, your return on investments. So you're going to see a lot of that happening. And I see it, even impacting on the labor market. You're going to see a situation where, because of refineries that will be built, because of the downstream infrastructure that will be put in place, you're going to see, it go up as more than, even before the end of the year, you're going to add at least another 300,000 jobs, And if you look at the potential that if we continue without this regime, what would happen is we're going to lose all those investments. Nigeria is going to get even more broke. And then you're going to have to retrench people, So the net effect is about adding about maybe between 600 and 800,000 jobs. And if you look at your unemployment rate of about 9.9%, as the last time, it was read out in February, that's a significant impact on Nigeria as a whole, So we need to look at the numbers in totality and say, what is the real impact of this regime? What is really going to happen?
The real economics.
Yes.
Okay, give us a minute. We'll come back. We need to talk about, we need to look at one question. The impact of all of this on the government. Why the government at the center?
Okay.
Is doing this. But again, the key question is if this is a silver bullet for the industry. Okay. Meka is talking to us after the break. Stick around with that. But the budget presentation or the budget implementation presentation today will be handled by the Minister of National Planning and Budget. That will be taking place, and we'll cover that for you here on the channel. The event was earlier scheduled to be addressed by the Vice President, but now it's being reported that the National Planning and Budget Minister will do the presentation. We'll be back in 1 minute. Days and weeks ahead, the conversation will continue about the new guided petroleum deregulation regime of the Buhari's administration. The government says it's getting out of that business, at least to some extent, maintain an oversight function, just manage the system and allow market forces, what you call forces of demand and supply, to determine the imports as well as the price of the product at the pump station. What impact for the government? The government's now reporting a little bit of a weak earnings. So something has to be done. The fiscal problem there is what the government's trying to avoid, carrying that backlog of under recovery at the downstream sector. Let's get back to the conversation with Meka Olowola, who is managing partner at General Consulting and Energy expert. Thank you. Let's get into this final part of the discussion. Talk to us about if this new regime is a silver bullet. That's the question. Is it a silver bullet?
What I think it is an opportunity for us to do what we should have done a long time ago, and what is due to benefit Nigeria as of now. I don't see any undertone to it. I don't see any undercurrent that is not transparent, because we are facing the same issues over and over again. And the narratives are different from what you had in 2012, right? Where there was an issue of, oh, if we save, monies from subsidies, is it going to be for, the corrupt enrichment of a few? For once we are happy. At least there's something that is not debatable amongst the generality of Nigerians, which is we now have a government that is credible and has integrity. Okay, so that is not an issue, across board. So what would then happen is that the savings you're going to get from the removal of subsidy, which is very significant. Nigeria spent, last year we spent close to over ₦1 trillion on subsidies alone. That's about, $5 odd billion, right? Now, if you think about how much it costs to construct a refinery, Nigeria's combined capacity today is 445,000 barrels a day, right? That would cost you maybe like $5-6 billion to build one, right? How many refineries would we have gotten if we were channeling these funds into infrastructure in the sector on a yearly basis? That means we would have had 10, right? Nigeria today will have been a net exporter of refined products. So when you look at that, when you say, what is this going to happen? Put the number in context. Works, Power and Housing, the celebrated, Fashola portfolio, this year is going to have 443 billion naira to spend the whole year, right? The transport is 202 billion naira. Now you spend a trillion every year. Now put it in perspective. So what the whole hula baloo about power and everything is 443 billion naira.
So we're just burning cash.
Literally. That's what you're doing.
We
just lighting it up.
Light it up.
Yep.
That's
every
what
day.
we're doing.
Every day.
With the subsidy regime.
With the subsidy regime. Now, government is saying, and we can trust them. That's the beauty. Everybody can say, yes, at least we will trust you. We'll give you the benefit of that. We are going to channel this into infrastructure. We're going to channel this to build refineries. Let's give them a chance for once. Let's do, you can't continue to do the same things and expect a different result. So people are saying we want change, we want stability, we want, products, constant product supply, right? So let's see it happen. This is a fantastic opportunity. We've tested this route before with diesel. Don't forget, So it's a fantastic opportunity in my own opinion to see, things change radically.
Let's spend about 1 or 2 minutes to drill down a little bit on the government, the impact on the fiscal regime, this new pricing, supply, and the government. For the government at the center, how does this kick in?
So what is going to happen is, even though we operate very, actively in the oil and gas, but we also advise across the sector. So what you're going to see happen to government is they will have enough cash, to invest in other sectors. So in the bid to diversify the economy, government earnings are still predominantly from oil and gas, crude oil sales, but agriculture is yearning for investment, right? So what is going to happen to that sector? Eventually, what you will see is that government will be able to do a lot more. Government will be able to even fund some of the socialist programs, to get more people employed. You remember that, the VP has announced 500 billion, naira as an interventionist fund to just, jumpstart the lower end of the pyramid of the socio-economic strata, to the point that you are going to see people who are running petri trees being able to then employ other people, right? Now, government is going to be able to do all of that the more they stop to worry about how we're going to get subsidy. And then you're going to have more money, to pay workers, for example, to be shared across the state, because government doesn't have to be saddled with the burden of trying to fund subsidy. So I think the net impact is what we should look at, which is positive.
Yes, we'll look at the net impact, Meka. But again, the man on the street, how does this all kick in? Because again, the marketers, whether they're independent or the majors, will have to go somewhere to source the FX. Then they'll have to go import and pay the CIF, and pay the landing costs, and what other costs, salaries and wages and what have you. So the man on the street is concerned about the fact that as early as today, marketers just move straight to 145.
Yeah. So to be candid, as paradoxical as this may sound, is all about the man on the street eventually, because that man on the street is already paying 200 naira, right? And he's getting products that are messing up his vehicle.
But he's scared that 145 looks like a point of no return.
No, that's not correct, because that same man of the street on the street 3 years ago, right, if he was working in a manufacturing concern, will have known how much they were buying diesel, will have known that, when that was liberalized and deregulated, it turned out for the better eventually. It went up as high as 200 naira to start with, but what is it now? 120, 125, isn't it? They have two people, everybody is dropping flyers on your door now to say, I can supply you diesel, right? I can give you another 10% discount. Yeah, that's what's going to happen. Competition is going to kick in. And when you have competition working perfectly, what you see is reduction in prices, efficiency. You will now become the king. The consumer now truly becomes the king. So I can make my calls and say, okay, so where am I going to buy fuel today? Which station am I going to go to? Which one serves my purpose? Am I in a hurry? Or can I wait a few more minutes, to buy here? So those are the things that will happen. Is eventually about that man on the street. And that's why I like what the Manufacturer Association of Nigeria has come to say, because that is a true reflection of the man on the street, from an umbrella point of view. And also the Lagos State Chambers of Commerce. What is happening is that they are saying this is a development that we welcome. right? Because if anybody should complain, shouldn't it be the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria?
Final question, quickly, a minute. Do you agree with the fact that the import side of this discussion has also been liberalized? In other words, says any Nigerian entity.
Yeah.
So would Zenera Consulting be willing to be ready to import?
It's something that we're willing to look at if the opportunity comes. Though it's not an area of focus, but the beauty is that we can now speak this way. You can ask me that question, and I can say I can look at it potentially.
So
it wasn't like that before.
Petrol is no longer for the exclusive, novel-rich, who knows who business. Yeah. If you meet the criteria, you just approach the NNPC
and DPR.
And DPR, and you can import petrol.
Yes, that's right. And they'll give you the guidelines for importation, which is very clear, and they will tell you what the quality parameters are, and they'll come and check, when it comes in to make sure that it meets specs. And if it's that, Nigeria is all better for it.
So the NNPC just sitting as the big brother, just supervise and regulate.
That they should have been doing all the while. Interesting
conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for those enlightenment you've brought in on the program this morning. But of course, the conversation is not over.
No.
Of course, I know we'll spend the days ahead. Thank you very much, Meka Olowola, who is the managing partner at Zenera Consulting, is also an energy sustainability expert. That's about all for today. We thank you for watching, everyone.